Josh Allan grew up on a farm, pulling weeds and moving irrigation pipes. Now he's throwing 70-yard rockets in the NFL. This is the story of how a kid from the tiny town of Fireball, California, went from a no-name high school quarterback to one of the most electrifying superstars in football. Josh grew up with more tractors around than football scouts, but something happened along the way that changed everything for the little boy. This is how he went from picking cotton to becoming an NFL prodigy. Josh Allan's story begins on a 3-acre cotton farm in Fireball, California, a town so small it's barely a dot on the map, with a population of just 8,000. Born on May 21, 1996, Josh was the second of 4 kids raised by Joel and LaVon Allan. Life on the farm wasn't glamorous, but it was the perfect training ground for building grit and character. Josh grew up helping his dad with back-breaking work, hacking weeds, digging ditches, and moving irrigation pipes under the scorching sun. When he wasn't in the fields, he was helping his mom run their family restaurant, fittingly named Farmer's Daughter. There were no quick trips to a friend's house or lazy weekends. Josh and his siblings had to get creative to entertain themselves on the farm. But the thing was, Josh wasn't just a farm kid. He was also a freak athlete. He played everything: football, baseball, basketball, even swimming in the summer. And he wasn't just good, he was great. By high school, Josh was leading the Fireball High basketball team in scoring and throwing 90 miles per hour fastballs. Despite all that talent, football was always his first love. However, Fireball wasn't exactly a football hotspot. It didn't produce star athletes, and the team wasn't a powerhouse. To make matters worse, Josh didn't attend high-profile football camps that could have put him on the radar for recruiters. But when he finally got his shot as a starter in his junior year, everything changed. At 6 feet 2 inches and 180 pounds, Josh wasn't the biggest or strongest player, but he had a cannon for an arm. That year, he threw 26 touchdowns, leading Fireball to a 7-3 record and beating their rival, Mendota, for the first time in over a decade. By his senior year, Josh had grown into a 6'5", 210-pound powerhouse, throwing 33 touchdowns and breaking every school record. By the time he graduated, the boy had over 5,200 passing yards, 59 touchdowns, and the best record in Fireball High history. They even retired his jersey, something unheard of for the school. Surely with stats like that, college recruiters would be lining up, right? Wrong. Josh received 0 Division I offers, not one. Despite his incredible high school career, scouts wrote him off because Fireball didn't play against top-tier competition. He had 1 walk-on option at San Diego State, but there were no guarantees he'd even see the field. But Josh wasn't ready to give up. In fact, he said, "I'm not stopping until I hit the NFL." So Josh packed up and made his way to Reedley College, just an hour away from Fireball. But his junior college career didn't start the way he hoped. For the first 3 games, Josh was a backup. However, after growing to 6 feet 5 inches and 210 pounds, he finally got a shot, and he made it count. In his very first game, Josh ran for 4 touchdowns. By the end of the season, he had racked up 2,055 yards and 26 touchdowns. Reedley's offense was lighting it up, averaging 42.2 points per game and ranking 9th in California. Josh's performance played a huge role in their success, and it was clear he was ready for the big leagues. But even though his numbers were impressive, no big Division I schools came knocking. He was ready to take the next step, so he took matters into his own hands. He emailed every college in the country, from Alabama to Washington, hoping to land a chance. Now standing at 6 feet 5 inches and weighing 238 pounds, he was a different player from the kid who started at Fireball. Yet only 2 schools bit: Eastern Michigan and Wyoming. Here's where things got a little weird. Wyoming wasn't even looking at Josh originally. They'd been scouting one of his teammates at Reedley, but when they lost out on another prospect, they circled back to Josh. Meanwhile, Eastern Michigan decided to cancel their offer after Josh visited Wyoming. Wyoming's head coach, Craig Bohl, was the only one who took the time to visit Josh in California. He straight up told Josh's dad, "We went all around the country, and there's only one quarterback we want, and that's your son. He's going to be the face of our program." But still, Josh's heart was set on Fresno State. the team he'd dreamed of playing for since he was 8. But when Fresno went with another recruit, a 6'1" quarterback named Chasen Virgil, Josh couldn't believe it. He emailed the coaches saying, "I'm 6 feet 5 inches, 238 pounds," and got a response, "Yeah, we got our guy. Good luck." Ouch, painful. So with even more fuel to the fire, Josh headed to Wyoming, ready to prove everyone wrong. But what waited for him on the other side was a whole different hell. After taking the plunge to Wyoming, things didn't exactly go smoothly at first. In 2015, he was the backup quarterback behind Cameron Kaufman, an Indiana transfer. But fate had other plans. In the season opener, Kaufman injured his knee, and just like that, Josh was thrust into the starting role. And guess where he made his debut? Against the very team that had passed on him, Eastern Michigan. However, things took a disastrous turn right away. On his first big run in the game, a 24-yard dash, Josh suffered a brutal injury. His collarbone shattered into 7 pieces. The injury ended his season early, and he was forced to take a medical red shirt after just 13 plays. It was a crushing setback, but this unexpected time off became a blessing in disguise. While recovering, Josh took full advantage of the extra time. He dug deep into the playbook, got stronger in the gym, and worked on his speed. And more importantly, it gave him time to focus on the mental aspect of the game, which he now considered the most important factor. When 2016 rolled around, Josh was ready. He was the starting quarterback for Wyoming, and he wasted no time showing what he was capable of. He led the Cowboys to one of the biggest wins in school history, a 30-28 upset over 13th-ranked Boise State. His performance was electric, and Wyoming quickly became a force to be reckoned with. Josh threw for 3,000 yards and 36 touchdowns, including 28 passing touchdowns, 7 rushing, and 1 receiving. But of course, there were bumps along the way. He threw 15 interceptions and had a 56% completion rate. But none of that mattered in the grand scheme of things. The Cowboys finished the season with the Mountain West Conference regular season title, and even though they lost the conference championship, it was clear that Josh was on the rise. After that successful season, the NFL talk started to pick up. Scouts were already looking into him, with people like Adam Schefter predicting Josh would be the number 1 pick in the 2018 NFL Draft. But Josh wasn't ready to declare just yet. He had a big decision to make. Should he leave for the NFL or return to school? He consulted with his dad, his coach, Craig Bohl, and even NFL stars like Carson Wentz. Ultimately, Coach Bohl made the case that stuck with Josh. Do you want to get drafted or do you want a career? That was all Josh needed to hear. He stayed at Wyoming, more motivated than ever. The 2017 season, though, started off on a rough note. Wyoming was coming off a season where they lost 4 all-conference players to the NFL, and they lost 2 of their first 3 games, including tough matchups against Iowa and Oregon. Josh's stats weren't looking great either. He had thrown just 7 touchdowns to 6 interceptions and had barely passed 100 yards in back-to-back games against Oregon and Hawaii. But as the season progressed, Josh found his groove. By the end of the season, he'd thrown 10 more touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Wyoming finished with an 8-5 record, and Josh was invited to the prestigious Manning Passing Academy that June. Gearing up for the NFL. There were still tons of questions surrounding the young star. Some people thought he was too raw, too inaccurate, and not polished enough to make it in the big league. They compared him to everyone from John Elway to Jamarcus Russell, and the criticisms kept piling up. Josh kept hearing things like, his accuracy is the real issue. He only completed 56% of his passes. Who needs a quarterback who can sling a Hail Mary once a year? This made the 2018 draft class even more crowded. But when you look at Josh's draft profile, it wasn't all doom and gloom. It was predicted that he'd be a round 1 pick with a 6.4 prospect grade, with the potential to become a good starter in 2 years. That wasn't bad, right? In the 2018 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills took a risk on Josh Allan, selecting him as the 7th overall pick after trading up from 12th. They were tired of their inconsistent run with Tyrod Taylor, and Allan seemed like the future. But things didn't exactly get off to a smooth start. Again. Josh wasn't the starter at first, but then, in the season opener against Baltimore, Nathan Peterman started and threw 5 interceptions in the first half with a 0.0 passer rating. Yeah, you heard that right. So naturally, Josh was thrown into the fire. His first ever NFL action was a tough 47-3 loss, with him throwing for just 74 yards. The rest of the season wasn't really a dream either. Allan had his highs and lows, showing some flashes of greatness, but also making some questionable decisions. By the end of the season, he finished with more interceptions than touchdowns. But hey, he also rushed for 8 touchdowns. Analysts weren't totally wrong in their predictions. He showed moments of brilliance, but there was still a lot of work to be done. The Bills ended the season with a 6-10 record, which was even worse than the previous year. So yeah, 2018 was rough, but there was nowhere to go but up. And that's exactly where they went. The next year, the Bills flipped their record to 10-6. Josh had 3,089 passing yards, 20 passing touchdowns, 9 rushing touchdowns, and just 9 interceptions. He also improved his completion percentage by 6%. And the best part was that the Bills made the playoffs. They faced the Texans in a wild-card matchup, and while they lost in an epic overtime game, it was clear that Josh Allan was growing into the leader the Bills needed. By 2020, the Bills had even added Stefon Diggs from the Vikings to give Josh a true playmaking partner. And man, did things start hot. In the first game of the season against the Jets, Allan threw for 312 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown, all while completing 72% of his passes. The Bills won 27-17, then it got even better. The next week against Miami, Josh threw for 417 yards and 4 touchdowns, including a game-winning 46-yard bomb in the fourth quarter. Yeah, that's the stuff that makes highlight reels. By the halfway point of the season, Allan was breaking records. He became the first player in NFL history to have multiple 400-yard, 3-touchdown games without throwing a single pick in a season. Oh, and did we mention the Bills were on fire? They finished the regular season with a 13-3 record, winning the AFC East for the first time since 1995. So yeah, that whole raw and inconsistent talk started to fade pretty quickly. Josh Allan had arrived. 2020 was a huge year for Josh Allan. He wrapped up the regular season with a mind-blowing 4,544 passing yards, setting a Bills single-season record, and 37 passing touchdowns with just 10 interceptions. He also had 8 rushing touchdowns. Seriously, this guy was on fire. His performance earned him a spot as a Pro Bowler, 2nd place in MVP voting, and a spot on the 2nd-team All-Pro list. To put it simply, Josh Allan was everywhere. And the Bills were riding high too. For the first time since 1993, they made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. Sure, they fell short against the Chiefs, but let's not forget, Kansas City's defense was relentless, and Josh still gave it his all. That interception in the red zone was his first of the entire playoffs. It wasn't just about stats and playoffs anymore. Josh was officially the face of the franchise. The Bills knew it too. So on August 6, 2021, they locked him down with a massive 6-year, $258 million contract extension, making him the 2nd highest paid NFL player at $43 million a year, with a then record $150 million guaranteed. But Josh wasn't about to rest on his laurels. As he put it, the money's there, but I gotta go out there and continue to earn it. And that's exactly what he did in 2021. In Week 2 against Miami, Josh passed 10,000 career passing yards. In Week 5 against Kansas City, he passed Jim Kelly for the most touchdown passes in Bills history, 82 to Kelly's 81. And remember, there were still 11 weeks left in his 4th season. By the time the regular season wrapped, the Bills were 11-6, and they had snagged their 2nd straight AFC East title. Allan had 4,407 passing yards, 36 passing touchdowns, and a career-high 49 completions. Not too shabby, but things were far from over. The playoffs were just around the corner. In the wild-card round, the Bills had something to prove, and boy, did they. They played the New England Patriots and absolutely destroyed them, 47-17. Every single offensive possession ended in a touchdown. Josh threw 5 touchdown passes. It was the first perfect offensive game the Bills had ever played. The very next week, the Bills were back on the field facing Kansas City once again in the divisional round. This game was an absolute classic. It was a shootout of epic proportions, with both teams exchanging blows like two heavyweight fighters. But the Chiefs managed to pull off a last-minute, 13-second field goal drive that tied the game and sent it to overtime. That's where things got controversial. The catch here was that Josh never got to touch the ball in overtime. The game was over before he even had a chance to respond. Heartbreaking. Josh was incredible, but the team lost in a way that felt like a total injustice. This game sparked a change in the rules. And in 2023, they introduced what became known as the Josh Allan rule. The new rule allowed the second team to have a chance to match the first team's score if it happens in overtime. Despite the crushing end, Allan set a new record for the highest passer rating in a single postseason in 2021, at an absurd 149. The only question now was, could he keep getting better? Spoiler, he did. In 2022, Allan was on fire, breaking records left and right. He led the league in total air yards with 2,677, and in Week 5, he threw the longest pass in Bills franchise history, a 98-yard touchdown bomb to Gabe Davis, defying the win and defying all expectations. That performance? Part of a monstrous 424-yard, 4-touchdown game against the Steelers. The Bills finished the season 13-3, claiming their third consecutive division title, but Allan wasn't done. The man had 4,283 passing yards, 35 passing touchdowns, and 7 rushing touchdowns by the end of the regular season. But the most emotional moment of the year? Watching Damar Hamlin's recovery following his terrifying medical emergency in Week 17. The Bills found new motivation and carried that energy into the playoffs. In the wildcard game, they took on Miami and won 34-31, with Allan throwing for 352 yards and 3 touchdowns. But in the divisional round, a snowy showdown with Cincinnati brought their Super Bowl dreams to a halt. And suddenly, the question surrounding Josh wasn't about his talent anymore. It was whether or not he could finally get over the playoff hump. 2023 was a year full of mixed emotions for him and the Bills. After a shaky start, including a tough loss to the Jets where Allan threw 3 interceptions, the pressure was on. But just like he's done time and time again, Josh turned things around. He finished the season with 4,436 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns, and set a record for the most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in a season, 15, breaking Kyler Murray's previous record. Plus, he became the only player in NFL history to have 4 straight seasons with 40-plus total touchdowns. Oh, and the Bills tied a franchise record for most consecutive AFC East titles, 4, which they hadn't done since 1991. But even with all those milestones, fans were still restless. The true test was always going to be the playoffs. Allan came out strong with a stellar wildcard round performance, including a 52-yard touchdown. But once again, the Bills' road to a Super Bowl led straight to Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. The two teams met in the divisional round for the 3rd straight year, and despite Allan scoring all 3 of Buffalo's touchdowns, the Bills lost once again, sending them out of the postseason early. This was a tough one. Fans and analysts were starting to believe that maybe the Bills' championship window had closed. With key pieces, including Stefon Diggs, leaving in the offseason, the question of the Bills' future was on everyone's mind. But as 2024 began, Josh Allan was proving everyone wrong. He started the season on fire, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and showing that as long as he was at the helm, anything was possible. And yet, people still doubted him. In a shocking anonymous poll, he was even named the most overrated player in the league by his own peers. But Josh didn't let it get to him. He continued to silence the haters, leading the Bills toward another division title and putting himself once again in the MVP conversation. At the end of the day, this farmer from Fireball has already proven more than enough.